Bienvenidos, señoras y señores, to the Bleed Lows podcast. We're going to do a little special YouTube short here in regards to the reaction of the Carlos Correa saga, telenovela, whatever you want to call it. We went to sleep that night thinking he was a San Francisco Giant, and we woke up seeing that he was all of a sudden a New York Met because the Giants found something came up in his physical. But we all have different theories about this, different conspiracies. Babyface, what was your reaction when you heard that Carlos Correa was now a Met?
Yeah, I mean, I was still up. I mean, I think I tried to text you guys, but you guys are probably out for the night. It just popped, one of those tweets that just pops up. I think it was Heyman, Correa to the Mets, and you're like, what? I mean, Correa to the Mets, and prior to that day, right? We had heard that there was a hang up with the medicals, and then we had kind of mentioned it too. Like, I don't think that's going to destroy the deal, right? They're probably just going to go in, kind of rework something, renegotiate some stuff, because we've seen that before with Kenta with the Dodgers. We didn't think that the Mets were going to go in and strike again. The Mets, right? Obviously, the Mets who have spent so much money over this winter. They go in and they get Correa for one less year, 12 years. Was it like 325 or something like that? So, yeah, surprising to say the least. I mean, the Giants have had it pretty tough this offseason, right? First they missed on Arson Judge, and now now they lose Carlos Correa.
Yeah, look, and you and I have talked about this off air in the sense that if you look at that Mets lineup, because is this right? Have you heard this rumor? The rumor is Correa's going to play third, and they're going to keep Lindor at short. Okay, even if that's the case, I don't know how much better that Mets lineup is to the Phillies lineup, or even to the Braves lineup. Now, I know the Braves, they lost Dansby Swanson, but it's going to be really interesting to play out. And I know now what's really funny is that the Mets are now viewed as the new evil empire. So I believe they have now taken that title away from the Dodgers. And the Mets are now the most hated team in baseball. And why? Because they're trying to win? I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because this doesn't guarantee them anything. I'm old enough to remember when the Dodgers won 111 games and didn't win the World Series. So the fact that the Metropolitans are spending all this money doesn't guarantee a championship. And everybody says they're trying to buy a championship. But I know you have problems with what the Metropolitans are doing, right, Babyface?
It's just getting kind of a little bit, I don't know if say old, but it's kind of like, okay, again, this guy's just paying whatever, right? And it's going to get to the point where there's no limit, right? Obviously, he doesn't seem to have a limit. And, it's now if I'm a player like, hey, I want to go to the Mets, just give me the money. I want to go to the Mets, right? And yeah, it kind of makes it an unfair advantage to some of the, we said this before, teams like the Reds, the Pirates, all those guys that seem not to try, they could pay, right? They can pay for guys if they wanted to. Yeah. They just don't want to. And maybe other teams can pay as much, but okay, the Mets are doing this. It may seem cool right now, the Mets, Mets fans are super happy with what they're doing. But in the long run, when you're giving out these contracts, 10, 12 years, I don't think it's going to end well, when you have Carlos Correa in year, 9, 10, 11, 12, and you're paying them, $30 million a year. You have 3, 4 of these contracts on your books, right? Just the thing with baseball, like I said, there's no salary cap. They did that the tax, and Cohen doesn't care. And then they did the tax especially for him, and he doesn't care, right? So I don't know. Do they need some kind of salary cap? I've always thought they need some kind of floor as well, right? If you're going to put a salary cap, you need to put a floor as well, right? You're going to spend at least $150 million, and you're not going to go over, $300 million or whatever, right? So I think they need to find an in between. I think.
Yeah, look, I don't have a problem with it. I don't think they should put a salary cap. look, the fact that this guy is desperately trying to get a championship, I'm not going to hold that against him. Because when the Dodgers signed Trevor Bauer, when the Dodgers signed Mookie Betts, when the Dodgers signed Freddie Freeman, the Dodgers were accused of the same thing. And of course, as Dodger fans, we were all happy that we got these guys because the idea is to win a championship. The idea is to win a World Series. So I don't have a problem with Cohen spending as much money as he is. Now, is it smart? Is it the way, can you keep this up? Is it a way to run an organization? That's a different story. But the fact that this guy is willing to spend money, because all these guys who own these teams are billionaires. And like you said, Babyface, they could spend the money to get players, but they don't. So instead of vilifying Steve Cohen because he's actually spending money, what we should be doing is vilifying those other owners who don't spend the money. I mean, everyone in this country hates socialism. Well, guess what? All these other owners, the owners of the Pirates, the Royals, and the Reds, isn't that socialism? They're taking money from the other teams. Why don't we have a problem with that? Those are the guys that we should be vilifying. The other reason why I don't have a problem with Steve Cohen spending the money that he's spending is because it raises the salary for everyone. Yes, the top guys in the sport are going to get the ridiculous deals. But now the guys that are at that mid-level, all of a sudden their salary gets bumped up because you're paying so-and-so this money. So as someone who believes in the worker and trying to get as much money as you can, spending all this money to me is a good thing, and it's his problem, right? It's his problem to deal with because, as we've talked about it, Babyface, if the Mets don't win, the Mets are going to get the same treatment that the Dodgers got this past offseason. Oh, look at all the money they spent. Oh, they won 111 games, and they didn't even win the World Series. Nothing that Steve Cohen has done guarantees a championship. You still have to play the game. This is now how you run an organization. So throwing money at your problems, is that enough to solve your problems? Or do you actually have to do something about it? So I don't have a problem with that. Now, let me ask you this. Have you heard this rumor that Steve Cohen said, and we're going to get Ohtani next year? Did you hear that?
I didn't hear it, but it's definitely, something I can imagine, right? I mean, either him or Julio, right? Who are they going to be the two big fish next year, Ohtani and Julio, right? So that's one thing that we're mentioning in our other show, right? Like, how much money is someone like Cohen going to throw at these guys, right? Like, his resources are endless, I think though I heard though is I'd seen it going around on socials is the Giants fans being upset. Do you think the Giants fans are really going to be upset at Correa? They're kind of saying, oh, LA now is going to hit him and San Francisco is going to hit. I don't really see a reason why Giants fans would be upset at Correa, right? I mean, he didn't do anything. It's not like he said, you know what? Forget it. I'm leaving. Yeah. He was trying to get a deal. I mean, I see no reason why they would be upset.
No, I agree with you. I don't think Giant fan is upset at Correa. I think Giant fan is upset at their management. I think they're upset at the people that are running this team because, first of all, why would you offer Correa that much money? And then it looks bad. I mean, Farhan, whether it was Farhan making this decision or ownership saying, hey, we don't like this deal, either way, Farhan looks bad. The Giants organization looks bad because now other players are going to be like, can I really trust these guys? And the fact that Boris didn't even hesitate for a second. I mean, from what Boris was saying on MLB Network, Correa's family was at the hotel getting ready to go to the press conference. And for the Giants to just cancel it like that, they probably pissed off Boris. And he immediately, what was that first call that he made? Now, they're saying that the second best offer Correa got was from the Metropolitans. All right, take that with a grain of salt. But the fact that Boris went straight to the Metropolitans, that probably confirms everything that you said, that Cohen doesn't care, that he's going to spend as much money as he wants. Like, when I first heard this news and that they were getting Correa, I thought, good, that's one less team that's going to compete for Ohtani and, next year. But now when Cohen's going out there and money isn't a factor for him, now, if he wins a World Series, is that going to change things? If the Metropolitans end up winning the World Series, is he all of a sudden going to stop spending as much money as he has because he got his World Series? Like, this to me is all about winning the World Series. So as a Metropolitan fan, what I would be asking myself is, what happens once he wins the World Series? Is that going to change his approach? So it's all fascinating. I don't think Steve Cohen is the bad guy for me. And you had mentioned this, Babyface, that some of the owners were complaining about this now.
Yeah, I'd heard that some of the owners are kind of complaining about it. That like I said, it's kind of bad in the sense, like I said, it's kind of bad business. Like when it's going to get toward and this is down the road, obviously years down the road. They're going to end up with bad contracts, and you're saying, okay, you give it drives the price of a player up. I mean, yeah, we've seen it already. Look at some of the contracts that have been given out this offseason, and the deals, right? There's 7, 8 year, 9 deals, and this is something like for the Dodgers, they don't typically do. Right. So if they're going to stay on that same model, not giving 7, 8, 9, 10 years, on a regular basis, what's that do for the Dodgers? They're going to miss out on every free agent now going forward because they don't want to give that type of deal, So, what's that going to do for like I said, teams like the Dodgers?
Well, it'll be interesting to watch because, yes, we see some of these deals and we scratch our head and be like, oh, that's ridiculous. They're giving out these deals because they could afford to give them out, these deals. So even though it seems like a lot of money for these players, can you imagine how much money these owners are making because they can afford to pay these ridiculous contracts? And when we had Dylan Hernandez on the show, he told us, with the money that's going to be coming in from gambling, I mean, that's even more revenue. So it's everything that you said, Babyface, in the sense that there needs to be a minimum that these owners have to spend. They can't just be pocketing everything. I mean, I feel bad for the fans in those cities who love the sport, who want to support their team, but it's not in good faith because are they really trying to win? Or maybe they are trying to win, but they're doing what the Marlins did when the Marlins won the World Series. The minute they won, they had a fire sale and just destroyed everything. So it was like they won with house money, and immediately it's like they won. And instead of keep playing to see if you can win more, they just went home. They took their money and they went home. So that's that could be happening. Look, the fact that the Dodgers have this ridiculous TV contract with Spectrum that's paying them a lot of money that they did not want to share with the rest of Major League Baseball. There are certain teams that have advantages over others. I get that. But all I want to see is them try to win. And when someone tries to win, I can't hold it against them.
So I have a question. So like a team like the Mets with Cohen, right? Like, he's going to have this ridiculous close to $500 million that, that's including the penalties. Is that money coming out of revenue that the team makes, or is that now money that he's taking, bringing in from, his hedge fund stuff that he makes out? Like, does the team have to pay, their salary basically from team revenue, or it doesn't really matter where the money comes from, as long as I paid my guys?
That's a very good question. Someone who's probably a good business person will tell you, I wanted to pay from the revenue of the team. I don't want to use my money for this. I want to, use it.
I mean, but Cohen, he's a billionaire. How many times over? Like, right? Someone like it's just money, right? I mean,
right. But that's why I'm saying what's important.
It's monopoly money to him, essentially. It's like whatever.
Right, but what's important to him is not how much money he's spending or even how much money he's going to make. It's the championship. It's being able to walk around with that trophy and say, I got one, especially when you're competing against the Yankees in that market. That's, to me, you hear this, and I don't know because I've never been that ridiculously rich. But at that point, it seems like it's all about ego, right? Like, so-and-so has this much money, so-and-so has that much money. Okay, maybe it's a difference. It's not that big of a difference. But Like, what was the big thing that you could always see, like Jerry Buss and Red Auerbach go back and forth about? It's like, who had more championships, right? So it's the competitor in these guys. It's probably why these guys got as much money and got as rich as they did. But I think that's all this is about. It's about him winning a championship. That's why when he does win the championship, I'm curious if he's going to keep this up, if he's going to keep up the spending. Like, what's to stop him? He wins the championship and then sells the team. Like, how much would the Metropolitans be worth?
Yeah, I mean, he could sell the team. I mean, and theoretically, if they had like, okay, we're gonna have a fire sale, like now, obviously, that's where you get into those things. Like, who's gonna take on those contracts, right?
Yeah.
Of like 10, 12 years, $300 million, right? It's like he wouldn't. I don't even think he'd be able to. They'd have to eat more than half of that to try and sell those guys off.
That's why, again, I don't have an issue with them spending it. Now, whether it's a smart way to run an organization, that's a different story. So that's something that we'll see. But this has been our inaugural little YouTube short that you will only be able to see on YouTube. So for those of you who have just stumbled upon us on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can catch our regular episodes from our podcast. You can also listen to our podcast on the audio version wherever you listen to your podcast. So either way, just make sure you're subscribed either through YouTube or through the podcast. So for the Bleed Los Podcast, yo ha sido su servidor, Juan Ramírez, de parte de mi colega Babyface. Nos vemos para la próxima. Adiós.